Hey, everybody, this is Ramon Ray, founder of Smart Hustle Media. Thanks for joining me for another exciting podcast and discussion and article and blog post and more, all about smart hustlers, how we can start and grow our businesses. And I'm excited to talk to Samantha Dong, who is with Ally NYC. Is that correct?
Ally Shoes, actually.
Ally Shoes. Okay,
Yeah.
the website, though, is ally.nyc, I think.
Yeah, but it's one of those things we're trying to figure out, because when you first see the word, you want to say Ally, but we really named it Ally because we
got it. And I should have
we
asked.
wanted to be ally for women in fashion.
Yes. I love it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So that's my faux pas. So Ally Shoes, correct?
Yes.
Got it. Ally Shoes. Good. I should have asked that first. So Ally Shoes. Welcome, meet Samantha Dong. And am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Samantha, welcome. With that, you can call me. You can mess up my Smart Hustle name too if you want. But thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we start off with what is Ally Shoes first? Tell us about what it is. I know that just reading the website, you had a foot issue and you're like, hey, I want to dress up and pop and sizzle, but I need something that's comfortable. Tell us about that, how it started.
Yeah, so Ally Shoes, we make pain-free high heels for professional women.
Okay.
And we do that by having a patent-pending design, as well as very inclusive sizing. And for me, I didn't come from fashion per se. I started my career in management consulting and a little bit in tech. So always wore heels. They always hurt me. I'm sure it's sort of a pain point, literal pain point for almost all women.
My wife as well, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure you know women in your life who complain to you about heel pain. But like a lot of other women, I was told, that's just the way it is. Beauty is pain, just deal with it. And so I sort of dealt with it for as long as I could. And then I went to business school, went to Stanford, and right before that, I actually went on a big hiking trip with a few classmates. So it was a really great experience. We went to Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania.
Nice.
And on the way down, unfortunately, I fell a couple times. And after the trip, had some remaining injury in my toes. Even after I recovered, I realized I just couldn't wear heels anymore. The pain tolerance that I used to have just was non-existent anymore. But I think that was also a point for me where I started asking myself, why do heels have to hurt in the first place? Why does it have to be painful? It's sort of a fashion item for a really long time, but seems like no one has really figured out how to solve this pain point. And so because I was in grad school, I had a little bit of time to look into it. So I learned shoemaking from scratch. I'm from Shanghai originally, and there's a huge kind of makers culture there. So when I went home, I visited a couple local shoemakers to do a very rudimentary prototype, and actually sold my very first prototype to my classmates.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that was my first hustle, I would say, because I literally walked the street in my hometown trying to figure out anyone who knows about shoemaking and would talk to me, and basically just sent out like a PDF file with a couple of pictures to my business school class and asked if anyone would pay me $300, like Venmo me actually, for me to make shoes for them. But that was a very valuable learning experience, because despite the fact that, my first prototype was not good enough by any measure, it did show me there's a huge demand for it, because as soon as I sent out that email, I got Venmo from people.
And when you sold that, did you sell them something you had, or was that more like a fundraiser? Like, what did you do with the money? Did you give it back, or did you deliver on something? Just curious how that happened with your friends.
I did. So it's it's like my personal crowdfunding, V0, because at the time I had made a pair of shoes for myself. I put in, I think, arch support, used some soft leather, nothing crazy, but it was already better than some of the existing brands in terms of comfort. And so I just took a picture of myself wearing that pair of heels. And I asked people to Venmo me, and it's for a pair of heels for them. So,
Nice.
yeah.
It seems, Samantha, like one big lesson learned there is just the aspect of creating a minimal viable product and testing it. I know I heard from my friend Mike McAllowitz, I was discussing with him, and he was saying some people, when they do something new, they just don't take the time to test it. But not to your mother, to your father, to your brother. Everybody will say, yes, Samantha, good, good, good. But to your friends and pay me, that's the proof, I think, really from right there.
Yeah, I think it was definitely very scary at the time because I still remember I didn't want to sell it. I was trying to like noodle with this little idea and my prototype, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can improve on this. But then my roommate just said, just try selling it. And if you couldn't sell it, then early on, then maybe people don't care about heel pain.
Right.
But if
Or
you
don't
don't
have the
ask
education
people,
about it enough too. Sometimes they just are not educated,
yeah, but I think it's to your point, if you don't ask people to pay you, they can tell you, oh, it's a great idea, but it's because they don't have to pay for it. And I think that it's a true test to see if people would actually pay for it. So
Absolutely.
that was my kind of first step.
Good. And so what was the journey then from then to where Samantha is right now with Ali Ali shoes?
Yeah.
Ally. The other ones in my head, Ally shoes. What's
Mhm.
the journey from then to today? What's that journey been like? Walk us through some of the milestones and what your
Mhm.
staff or team is like today. Is it you or do you have a team? What's it like?
Yeah, so I sort of did my very minimal crowdfunding during my second year in grad school, and around graduation time, instead of looking for a quote unquote real job, I decided this idea really has legs to it, pun intended, and so I raised a very small amount of angel pre-seed capital, mainly focused on product development, and I decided to do this full time. And I knew at the time I was still in Silicon Valley, but very quickly realized, I got to come back to New York because that's where a lot of the talent is, and really my target customers are here.
For
So
sure.
I moved here, but also I just moved back by myself, and I realized I needed a team of true experts. So my first step was to form an initial founding team of product experts. And that's my second hustle, I would say, is really as someone who didn't come from fashion, I didn't have meaningful connections.
Right.
So I just reached out to people cold on LinkedIn. That's something I learned to do in my startup days. I helped my previous startup founder kind of double our startup team, and a lot of it is finding the type of talent you want on LinkedIn and just reach out to them. And so that's how I found our product advisor, Jeff Henderson, who was the former innovation director of Nike and Kohan.
But you went
There was,
high. You just weren't looking for John Doe.
yeah,
I mean,
no,
wow.
I figured why not? Because worst case, he says no. But he actually took the meeting. We met. I also was very upfront with him that, I have a little bit of money, but really reserving it for prototyping. I can't quite pay you, the same level that you're used to, but, I really think there's something here. And so he took a chance on me. And he also introduced me to two other really amazing women, Dr. Roxanne Clark, who's a practicing foot ankle surgeon. She treats professional women every day on foot issues, and it's really her passion as well to kind of prevent those foot injuries from the first place. And our designer, Sarah Jaramillo, very talented footwear designer who worked with Jeff, both, she's worked on very fancy, like Italian dress shoes, but she's also designed for Adidas. So I really got a great team of experts, but with very diverse background and expertise. And we kind of started with our product development process for the first 6 months of me coming back here.
Wow.
And then we
Before you
also
sold anything, you were building product for about half a year. I mean,
yeah,
got it.
but we were actually we took a very iterative process. So every time we had new prototypes, we would, or samples, we would gather a group of women, a lot of our friends, and ask them for feedback. Because
Nice.
I thought that was one thing that was lacking in the industry is, a lot of times products are created without asking women what they wanted. And perhaps that's why, a pain-free heel was never created in the first place. And so that was very important to us. And as a result of those meetings, we actually decided to expand on size and width options, because that's one thing we kept hearing from people who said, please make wide width, or please make narrow width, or please make shoes for small feet people and women who are very tall and need larger sizes. And that's really something lacking as well. So we incorporated that into our product as well. So that process, and we filed patent end of 2017 and did a soft sort of friends and family launch of our first product. We call it the Little Black Heel. In like early 2018, got a little bit more feedback, and then our official launch is summer of 2018 when we did a crowdfunding. That's, we had our black heels, but we also decided to launch a nude collection, and we launched with 5 different shades of nude, which was also something that, I think now more brands are starting to do, but at that time it was still something that women in our community really wanted, but found it very hard to find the right shade. So did that, and then after that we got really great feedback and demand from the crowdfunding. So we've been sort of bootstrapping since then.
And what did you use on the crowdfunding? What site did you use? Did you do it yourself, or you did a traditional crowdfunding site?
We did Indiegogo. Yeah.
Any reason why you picked them? Just curious, so we can learn about crowdfunding as well. What's your lessons learned from that experience? What did you?
So I would say we were, at the time, iFund Women was still nascent. So today if I were to do one, I might pick iFund Women. At the time, it was really Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And the only reason is I happened to know someone at Indiegogo. So I was able to get a little bit more support from them.
Got it. Makes sense. Got it. And then I'm curious as well. So then tell us more of the journey. Well, before we do that, I'm just curious, because you said that you noticed, I think Jeff, the who's your first founding partner? Was it? Yeah. He picked you. Of course, you picked him too. But why do you think you did that, Samantha? Why didn't he say no?
So it's interesting. He told me that he actually liked the fact that I didn't come from industry. He said, there are a lot of ideas he wanted to try, a lot of ideas he wanted but couldn't try at the Kohan project. But for me, I was so open-minded that I'm willing to try anything, and that's something he thought was lacking in the industry. And I was also very adamant that I wanted a female-led founding team, which he also really liked. So I think he just wanted to kind of be a coach for us, and it ended up being that way, which is so great. That he really was generous with his connection, his expertise, but he sort of let myself, Roxanne, and Sarah run the show, and was there as our coach.
Which means that I guess you had to make sure, what's your advice for founders as they're thinking of doing their own founding team or just hiring? How do you make sure you gel? What if you didn't like Roxanne or Jeff or the other lady you work with? How do you, and of course you do, but it's speaking in general, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with, are we a fit or not? Or you know what? They're super smart. So even if I hate them, I'm going to work with them. Or they have a lot of money, so I don't like them. They have terrible morals, but I need their money. Or you know, they're not smart, but they're nice people. How do you
Mhm.
balance all these things, you know?
Yeah, so I am a huge believer in value alliance.
Okay.
I think it's very obviously you want very competent people
Right.
who knows what they're doing, but it's very important that you have the same long-term goals and your fundamental value is the same. For us, we truly believe in this trend of functional fashion. I think whether it's a heel or a bag, it doesn't matter. Kind of high level, we agree
Yes.
on those things, and we both really love building amazing products. Um, so I think that was very good, even though we didn't know each other
Right.
before. Just off the bat, we really kind of aligned on those. And then I would say one thing is I always believe in a trial period. It's sort
Mm.
of like a dating
Yeah.
period
Yeah.
amongst founders or advisors. So in our agreements, there's like a 1 month trial
Got it.
period. It's the
That's
same
nice.
with Jeff, with Roxanne, and we kind of talked beforehand saying that, this is a month to try things out. If we hate each other after a month, that's fine.
No
No hard
harm done. We
feelings.
just walk away and
Right.
smile.
Yeah, exactly. So that has really worked out
Nice.
for us, and I implement that in our hiring process as well, even
Got it.
now.
And then
Yeah.
talk about the expansion. I'm curious about how e-commerce, well, maybe not an e-commerce company, but how does that work to
Mhm.
learn? Meaning
Yeah.
you have shoes, you clearly have a factory or factories making them.
Mhm.
How are they distributed? How do you ship them? And pretend 101, educate us to learn. If I want to make, headphones, how do I get them in 7-Eleven? Or I'm trying to make, I don't know, pens. Give me a overview of that process as best you can. How does that work?
Yeah, so we really focused on building a digitally native and for the most part direct to consumer brand.
Got it.
And for us, we have so many different sizes and it's a very differentiated
Right.
product. And also, another reason we're building this is because I want to reduce overproduction in the fashion cycle. So we do a lot of made to order, which inherently, we have very quick turnaround, but our margin is not super high for a wholesale retailer. So I can, if I sell my shoes to Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's, it will become number one, it will become a $700 shoe, and two is, I I probably won't make any money on it. So
Right.
we chose to do direct to consumer.
Okay.
And at the beginning, it was very much, I didn't have a ton of funding. So we just fulfilled everything ourselves. And I don't know how common this is, but literally at the beginning, we just rented out a storage unit for our inventory.
It's
And
common.
yeah, and we would just, initially there weren't that many orders, before the crowdfunding, so we just go there whenever we need to ship. It's relatively easy, to um, have like a UPS account or
Push.
USPS account. You can just print labels and do it that way.
Nice.
Um, we are actually now in a process where we're still fulfilling orders in-house, but it's getting to a point where it's a little too much. Um,
Which is
we
good.
now I have a proper office, and
Right,
so we
right,
have a
right.
storage room there. But we're in the process of looking for a fulfillment center,
Good. Good for
and
you.
I would say for products that's a little bit smaller, like a headphone that doesn't have sizes, I would recommend getting fulfillment centers like day
Right,
one.
right. Got it.
It's just relatively easy to do that. But for footwear brands, um, because we have so many different sizes, and we have a little bit higher exchange rate and things like that, it's a little bit tougher to get a fulfillment center. So it depends on the type of product
Got it.
you
Got
have.
it.
Yeah.
And my last question for you, Samantha, but then I'd love to know anything else that you want to share that I haven't asked
Mhm.
is that marketing. How do you, that's a common thing. Again, legal,
Yeah.
those are some commonalities or hiring, finance, profit and all that. But but for me, I think marketing, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So
Mhm.
what are your tips and advice and how have you got the word out, to let people know, hey, uh, Ally Shoes is here.
Mhm. Yeah, so I recommend a book that I read called Traction. And what I really liked about that book is this methodology of testing, iterate, and then test again. And that's sort of how we approached our marketing as well. And interestingly, that's how we approached our product development as well. You have a few kind of hypotheses, and you test out a few different channels that you think would work, test it for a little bit, and then go back to see which ones actually work and kind of double down on those, and then continue kind of working on those until they
Sure.
don't work anymore, and then you find something else. So a few examples for us, initially I did what other people did, right? So Facebook marketing, Google AdWords, influencers, and we kind of hosted trunk shows a little bit here and there. But especially with crowdfunding, very heavy on Facebook marketing. That was actually, it worked for a little bit. And then I think, nowadays people say Facebook and Instagram are saturated, the costs are higher. I think at that time that just started happening. So very quickly I realized, I am getting orders from Facebook, but I'm not really making much money after how much I'm paying for the ads. And so started looking into other things that might work. And one channel that worked for us for a really long time is offline events and trunk shows. And that's actually because two things. One is we would typically partner with a women's organization, or a corporation, or a women's conference. So it's very kind of
Right.
captive, targeted audience.
Integrated into their whole.
Yeah. And they wear heels. And number two is we are a comfort driven brand, and we have a very differentiated product where as soon as someone steps into our heels, we have a consistent 50% conversion rate. So 1 in 2 would buy.
Wow.
Even if they knew nothing about our brand before, the product is just that good. So as much as we can get people into our heels, that's what we should do. So that was a very interesting insights that, looking back, it makes sense. But at the beginning, we didn't know. We just knew every time we do trunk shows, things seem to sell. But then we're at a point where trunk shows are not scalable anymore. It was very low hanging fruit, but now it's, I can't continue doing that. There's only, one COVID happened, but even without COVID, there are only so many events you can do as a small company. And so we started building a brand ambassador program, which is more scalable. And again, we kind of tested it with a few ambassadors, and it really works. So it's a very evolving process.
Sure.
But I think the methodology of having some assumptions, test it, look at the results, and then figure out what works, that works. And so, yeah, so that's how we've been approaching marketing. But I was also fortunate enough, I found my marketing advisor through Luminary, actually. So Bethany, she used to run brands for Shoots North America, was in the industry for the longest time. So she's like the Jeff in marketing for me. And so that was another key part where, if I had to figure everything out myself, I probably it would take me a lot longer. But having her to guide me through some of those things and how to build a brand was very, very important.
I love it. Anything I didn't ask you, Samantha, that you wanted to talk about? Anything that's important for entrepreneurs, business owners, whether personal or business, that you wanted to share? Anything else?
One thing I would say, given COVID, is I think COVID is a very good test for how resilient an entrepreneur is and how nimble startups should be. So from our example, and I've seen this in different examples depending on the company and industry, but for us, we had to quickly figure out, okay, 50% of our revenue was offline. How do we, offset that now that we're sheltered in place? And so we launched this at-home trial box,
I saw that on your site.
where, it's a very new initiative. It's less than a month old. Again, basically, we're like, okay, how do we get people into our shoes? So the idea is you tell me what your size is, your color preference. We would curate 1 to 2 pairs of shoes. You don't pay anything up front. Try them at home, keep whatever you want and return the rest. And that's been very, very exciting for us as the new growth channel. But I think we just launched it, and I've seen some other brands. I think I talked to a floral entrepreneur who used to cater for weddings, and they quickly redid their e-commerce portal. So now they could enable floral delivery and all of that very quickly. So I think that was my biggest takeaway recently. Is just COVID is very stressful,
Yes.
but something good came out of it, and it's just a good test for how resilient you can be.
No, you're right. It is the test, and I've had to do the same thing myself. Samantha, this has been amazing. And one more time, can you give us the name of your website, how the ladies listening to this or the men in their lives can try out this service? What's the website?
Yeah, so the website is ally.nyc. That's ALLY.nyc. And our Instagram handle is @allyshoes.
I love it. And Samantha Dong, co-founder or founder of Ally Shoes. Great talking with you today. Thank you so much. And again, shout out to Luminary for putting us together. And this is Ramon Ray, founder of Smart Hustle Media. And you can find more podcast interviews like this at smarthustle.com. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/smarthustle, smarthustle.com/podcast. Everything Smart Hustle. My name is Ramon Ray. Thanks for joining us.